Ever wonder what really happened to the man who spent 5 decades making the whole world scream? Steven Tyler built Aerosmith from a cramped Boston apartment into one of the best-selling rock bands in history, selling over 150 million records worldwide. But behind the scarves, the screaming vocals and the sold-out arenas, a much heavier story was unfolding. At 78, the full picture of what Tyler has survived, lost, and now faces is finally coming into view. The making of a rock legend, from Yonkers to Boston. There was nothing inevitable about Steven Tyler becoming one of rock and roll's most recognizable voices. Born Steven Victor Tallarico on March 26, 1948, in Manhattan and raised in Yonkers, New York, Tyler grew up in a household where music was already present. His father, Victor, was a classical pianist who taught music, and those early years spent listening and absorbing sound planted something in the young Tyler that no classroom could replicate. As a teenager in the early 1960s, Tyler threw himself into the local music scene with an intensity most of his peers couldn't match. He formed a band called the Strangers in 1964 while attending Roosevelt High School in Yonkers, a group later renamed Chain Reaction. That outfit opened for established acts including the Byrds and the Beach Boys, giving the teenage Tyler his first real taste of performing in front of a crowd that was actually paying attention. High school came to an abrupt end in 1967 when Tyler was expelled for substance use, an early sign of the addiction struggles that would define and nearly destroy his career decades later. The real turning point came in the summer of 1969, when Tyler attended a local rock show in Sunapee, New Hampshire, and saw a band called the Jam Band. Its guitarist and bassist Joe Perry and Tom Hamilton had a raw energy that matched Tyler's own. What followed was a determined effort by Tyler to pull Perry and Hamilton into a new band together, and eventually they relocated to Boston, where Aerosmith played its first gig in 1970 with the classic lineup: Tyler, Perry, Hamilton, Brad Whitford, and drummer Joey Kramer. The name came from Kramer, who had scribbled it in his school notebooks because he thought it sounded like a cool name for a rock band. The early days were far from glamorous. The 5 musicians shared a cramped apartment in Boston's Allston neighborhood, rehearsing constantly and building a following one show at a time. The work paid off when Aerosmith signed with Columbia Records in 1972, and their self-titled debut arrived the following year. That first record didn't light the world on fire commercially, but it contained the seeds of something bigger, a piano-driven ballad called Dream On, written by Tyler years earlier, that would go on to become one of the most recognizable songs in American rock history. The breakthrough, and the beginning of the excess. The real explosion came in 1975 with Toys in the Attic, the album that turned Aerosmith from a regional act into a national phenomenon. Songs like Sweet Emotion and Walk This Way showed a swagger and musical intelligence few contemporaries could match. Rocks followed in 1976, pushing the band's hard-edged, bluesy sound to new extremes. By the late 1970s, Aerosmith was selling out arenas across the country, and Tyler had become one of rock's most recognizable frontmen. The scarves tied to his microphone stand, the jaw-dropping stage acrobatics, and a shrieking vocal style that set him apart from nearly everyone else in the genre. Comparisons to Mick Jagger were constant, but Tyler had something distinctly his own: a restlessness, a hunger to push every note past where most singers would stop. That ambition came paired with a dangerous appetite for substances that would eventually bring the whole structure down. Tyler and Joe Perry earned the nickname, the Toxic Twins, from the music press, a label that from the outside looked like ordinary rock and roll excess, but from the inside was a spiral no amount of commercial success could slow. Rock bottom. By 1979, substance use had hollowed the band out from the inside. Joe Perry quit following a backstage confrontation, and Brad Whitford followed him out the door in 1981, leaving Aerosmith without 2 of its most essential members. Tyler pushed forward with a substitute lineup, but the albums that followed lacked the fire of the band's peak years and audiences could feel it. By the early 1980s, Aerosmith had largely fallen out of the mainstream, their commercial momentum gone and their credibility badly damaged. Cocaine, heroin, alcohol, and prescription medication had become part of a daily pattern that consumed enormous amounts of energy, money, and creative possibility. Even after Perry rejoined the band in 1984, the underlying addiction issues hadn't been addressed in any lasting way, and a 1985 comeback album, Done with Mirrors, arrived with cautious optimism but failed to produce the results the band needed. The Run DMC collision that changed everything. The shift came from an unlikely direction. In 1986, producers Rick Rubin and Russell Simmons approached Aerosmith about collaborating with the rap group Run DMC on a new version of Walk This Way. Neither Tyler nor Perry was enthusiastic at first. Run DMC for their part had never even heard of Aerosmith, but Rubin persisted, and what emerged from those sessions was genuinely historic. The recording became one of the first rap songs to get significant airplay on mainstream rock radio, tore down a wall between two musical worlds that had seemed entirely separate, and gave Aerosmith its first major commercial success in years. The effect on the band's trajectory was immediate. Tyler entered rehab, and the entire band gradually committed to sobriety. Permanent Vacation arrived in 1987 with a string of hits that returned Aerosmith to the top of the charts. Pump followed in 1989, featuring Janie's Got a Gun, one of the most serious and musically ambitious songs in the band's catalog. Later the inspiration for Tyler's charitable foundation, Janie's Fund, which he launched in 2015 to support young girls who have survived abuse and neglect. Get a Grip followed in 1993, winning 2 Grammy Awards. The peak of the band's second act arrived in 1998 with I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, the power ballad Tyler recorded for the film Armageddon. It reached #1 in multiple countries, earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Song, and became the biggest chart hit of Aerosmith's career. Tyler's performance on the track revealed a tenderness his earlier hard rock catalog rarely allowed to the surface, a different kind of power than Sweet Emotion or Walk This Way, quieter but no less intense. In 2001, Aerosmith was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, cementing a legacy that had, by then, spanned 3 decades for Grammy wins and dozens of gold and platinum records. A decade later, Tyler stepped outside the band entirely to become a judge on American Idol for 2 seasons beginning in 2011, introducing his voice, literally and figuratively, to a television audience that had grown up on none of it. When the voice breaks, the injury that ended an era. The farewell tour was supposed to be a celebration. Announced in 2023 as Aerosmith's final run of concerts after more than 5 decades together, Peace Out, the farewell tour, gave the band a chance to say goodbye in a setting worthy of their legacy, following a Las Vegas residency at Park MGM and a hometown show at Boston's Fenway Park. The tour opened in Philadelphia in September 2023, and reviewers noted Tyler's voice remained remarkably flexible on songs like Cryin' and Livin' on the Edge. Then just 3 shows in, the final one at UBS Arena in Elmont, New York, on September 9, 2023, Tyler suffered a serious injury to his larynx while performing. Initial reports described bleeding vocal cords, but a medical examination soon revealed something more serious. His doctor confirmed that beyond the vocal cord damage, Tyler had fractured his larynx, an injury requiring ongoing care that no touring schedule could accommodate. The remaining dates were postponed, first to early 2024, then to a rescheduled 40-date run beginning that September. Tyler issued a personal statement expressing heartbreak at not being able to perform, promising fans the band would return. They did not. In August 2024, Aerosmith announced that a full recovery was not possible, writing that they had watched Tyler struggle for months despite having the best medical team by his side, and calling the decision to retire from touring heartbreaking and difficult, but necessary. The larynx injury wasn't the only physical setback of that stretch. A 2022 relapse on opioid pain medication, triggered by foot surgery ahead of the Las Vegas residency, sent Tyler back into treatment, a fact the band disclosed with a candor that reflected how much had changed since the 1980s, when addiction among rock musicians was something the industry expected to romanticize rather than address. Tyler had been sober for more than a decade before that relapse, and has spoken publicly, including to a group of drug court graduates in 2014, about being an addict and alcoholic who fights it every day. Since the retirement announcement, Tyler hasn't disappeared from the stage entirely. About 6 months later, he performed at his annual Janie's Fund Grammy viewing party in Los Angeles, taking the stage for a short set that included Toys in the Attic and Dream On. Then in September 2025, Tyler appeared at the MTV Video Music Awards alongside Joe Perry, Youngblood, and guitarist Nuno Bettencourt to honor the late Ozzy Osbourne with a tribute performance of Mama, I'm Coming Home, his first major award show appearance since retiring from the road. Around the same time, Tyler's friend, former Guns N' Roses drummer Matt Sorum, said Tyler had sung for the first time in a year and a half at a private gathering, calling it a big moment, while making clear that full touring was not coming back. The instrument had survived, just not at the level the road demands. At 78, the legal battle and what remains. Beyond the voice and the health setbacks, Tyler arrived at 78 carrying a legal shadow that has grown heavier with each passing year. In 2022, a woman named Julia Misley, formerly known as Julia Holcomb, filed a civil lawsuit alleging that Tyler groomed and sexually assaulted her beginning in 1973, when she was 16 and he was in his mid-20s, and that their relationship continued for roughly 3 years. The suit alleges Tyler convinced her parents to grant him legal guardianship so he could travel with her across state lines while on tour, and it references passages from Tyler's own 2011 memoir, Does the Noise in My Head Bother You?, in which he refers to Mislay using the phrase teen bride. Washington Times. A separate lawsuit filed in 2024 by former model Jean Bellino, alleging a different incident in 1975, was dismissed by a federal judge on statute of limitations grounds. The Mislay case has had a more complicated path. Because most of the alleged relationship took place in Massachusetts, where the statute of limitations had long expired, a Los Angeles judge dismissed the bulk of the claims in early 2026. But one surviving claim, tied to an alleged 1974 incident at a California hotel, was allowed to proceed under California's Child Victims Act, a law that opened a temporary window for survivors of childhood sexual abuse to file civil claims regardless of how much time had passed. Tyler's attorney called the ruling a near-total win, noting that the vast majority of the original claims had been thrown out. Mislay's attorney said the trial would still give a jury the chance to hear the allegations and determine accountability. Tyler has denied the allegations of assault, while not disputing that a relationship with Mislay existed. The case is scheduled to go before a jury on August 31, 2026, in Los Angeles County Superior Court. Washington Times.
At 78. The legal battle and what remains. Beyond the voice and the health setbacks, Tyler arrived at 78 carrying a legal shadow that has grown heavier with each passing year. In 2022, a woman named Julia Mislay, formerly known as Julia Holcomb, filed a civil lawsuit alleging that Tyler groomed and sexually assaulted her beginning in 1973 when she was 16 and he was in his mid-20s, and that their relationship continued for roughly 3 years. The suit alleges Tyler convinced her parents to grant him legal guardianship so he could travel with her across state lines while on tour, and it references passages from Tyler's own 2011 memoir, Does the Noise in My Head Bother You?, in which he refers to Mislay using the phrase teen bride. Washington Times. A separate lawsuit filed in 2024 by former model Jean Bellino, alleging a different incident in 1975, was dismissed by a federal judge on statute of limitations grounds. The Mislay case has had a more complicated path. Because most of the alleged relationship took place in Massachusetts, where the statute of limitations had long expired, a Los Angeles judge dismissed the bulk of the claims in early 2026. But one surviving claim, tied to an alleged 1974 incident at a California hotel, was allowed to proceed under California's Child Victims Act, a law that opened a temporary window for survivors of childhood sexual abuse to file civil claims regardless of how much time had passed. Tyler's attorney called the ruling a near-total win, noting that the vast majority of the original claims had been thrown out. Mislay's attorney said the trial would still give a jury the chance to hear the allegations and determine accountability. Tyler has denied the allegations of assault, while not disputing that a relationship with Mislay existed. The case is scheduled to go before a jury on August 31, 2026, in Los Angeles County Superior Court. Washington Times. At 78, Tyler's net worth is estimated at around $150 million, accumulated across more than 5 decades of music, touring, television, and royalties, a figure that reflects the sheer commercial scale of what Aerosmith built. The catalog keeps generating income independent of any single tour. Dream On still turns up in films and sporting events. Walk This Way remains a permanent fixture of both rock and hip-hop history, and I Don't Want to Miss a Thing still plays at weddings around the world. The music has embedded itself into the culture so completely that it now exists almost independently of the man who made it. What Tyler carries into this chapter is the accumulated weight of all of it, the extraordinary highs of the band's commercial peaks, the near collapse of addiction, the improbable resurrection through sobriety, and a hip-hop collaboration nobody saw coming, the physical toll of an injury that ended touring for good, and now a legal reckoning playing out in a Los Angeles courtroom. Rock and roll has always promised that you can live at full volume forever. Steven Tyler lived that promise as fully as almost anyone has. What his story at 78 reveals is that consequences arrive eventually, in forms no amount of talent or willpower can stop. If you found this video meaningful, hit like and subscribe for more content like this. Drop a comment and let us know what you think about Steven Tyler's story. We read everyone.